Hi everyone, it's Lisa with Beauty Blackbook. I wanted to come to you guys today with a quick application for makeup. It will be a daytime look, but it will be something that's going to be easy to transition into something night. I have no makeup on right now. The only thing I've applied to my face is the eye primer because my eyelids tend to be a little bit oily, so my eyeshadow does tend to crease up quite a bit. And then I have some lash conditioner, which is by Physicians Formula. It's like a little pen, so I just draw it on there. My eyes get easily irritated is the other thing, so that's going to kind of help prevent that. So the first thing I'm going to do is my concealer, which is actually, I just basically use a lighter foundation just because I like the consistency of it. I do have some scarring on my jawline from a surgery that I had. So that, and then I just have, I'm in my 30s. That's typically where women get acne at for whatever reason. It's horrible. But you're more prone there typically than on your face. So you can see my face is pretty clear. But it is around my jaw that I tend to break out. And then I can't stop messing with it, so it scars a little bit, which is horrible, but that's the reality of my life right now. So I'm just going to blend this in. The one thing with my eyes, I love for my eyes to pop. I do have a little bit of darkness underneath my eyes, not a lot. Sometimes I'll go blending crazy, which means I'll wind up having to put a little bit more just because I didn't know when to stop blending. And then I tend to want to bring it down a little bit. Create some balance there. And then just kind of buffer the edges out. And as you see, I kind of go back between the actual brush to my fingers. And sometimes I even use a sponge, just depending on what mood I'm in. I usually like to start with the brush, but then sometimes with the brush, because I am a little bit heavy-handed, I will blend it too much. Typically, you want to apply it, let it set a little bit, so then that way you can kind of absorb a little bit so that you will get the coverage that you want, and then just take the edges and lightly buffer it out. So this is a foundation brush. The next thing I'm going to do is the foundation. That I do typically like to apply with a sponge. I don't really like to apply a lot of it considering I've already used, a lighter shade foundation as my concealer. Typically with my face, the only thing that I'm really concerned of is camouflaging the scarring I do have on my jawline. And then I do tend to have a lot of redness in my skin. Now, typically once I'm done with this stage, I am looking a little pale. The color that I'm using is actually a soft beige, so it's not really as light as it appears. And this is actually the color I used for the concealing portion. And then still, that scarring sometimes at the bottom is just so hard to cover. But I like liquid foundation. I do not like powder. It tends to be a little bit cakey. And you'll see something that I will kind of add to this to kind of warm it up. And then just go down the neck a little bit. Okay. So now that I have that point done, then by then I'm like, whoa, I look awake, but I need some color in my life. So by then I'm adding a little bit of the Mosaic blush. I love these. I'll add a little bit now to warm it up. A little bit of that. And then I will also even go back with a brown bronzer, which is also a Mosaic palette, which I love. I tend to use more of the lighter side, just because I feel like that's going to blend best with my complexion. I don't really do a lot of contouring, but if I wanted to, I can go right beneath that high point and kind of bring my, have my cheeks pop out a little bit more. Okay. And then sometimes I will even take the really light shade of that, and I'll use that kind of as a base for my eyes before I start applying the color that I want as far as the eyeshadow. Now, I don't wear a lot of eyeshadow just because I think with my eyes it tends to, if I have too much stuff going on around my eyes, they tend to close up a little bit. The only eyeliner that I use is actually one that's of a taupe or even white. This is a trick that I found on Tyra Banks years ago, and I absolutely love it. I'll basically line the top of my lash with this. And if I want, every now and then I will do the corner as well. If it's a day that you feel like you really look like you're still sleeping, this is a great trick. The key is to not use too much. And of course, it still needs to be blended. So then typically I'll just take a light, more of a flatter brush. You can see that. And then I just basically kind of buffer it out a little bit. You want to be able to see it, but it shouldn't be too crazy. I see some women, they utilize this trick and you'll see them. It's like, wow, we're using baby powder as eyeshadow. So you want to make sure that you blend it in really well. I think with eye makeup especially, blending is the key. Because if it's not blending well, it just tends to look very artificial, which you wouldn't want that. I would hope you wouldn't want that at least. Piece of hair there. So if you can see, of course, you can still see a little bit of the outline, but it's nothing too crazy. And now what I will do, I'll go back with this color and kind of add a little bit more towards the center of the eye. I'm going to raise this a little bit up a little bit because this is actually going to work as my shadow for the lower part of my lid. So it's an eyeshadow stick. It's actually made by, oh, where's the brand at? I can't find the brand, but I actually love different brands. I found CoverGirl in this for this particular type of product, and they're amazing. Just a huge pencil that could be used as a shadow. Same thing though, it still needs to be blended out. So just some light buffering amongst the edges, so that way it doesn't look like you were just in there painting around your eyes. So you see, like, it's kind of bright. I like that. So now I'm going to do a little bit of contouring. I really don't like to do a lot of that. Just with my particular eye shape, I feel like this is pretty much enough for me. Sometimes I'll go in and play with different colors and add a little bit of something there. I will do a little bit more just to give you guys a little bit of tips. I'm going to use the same type of product, another eyeshadow pencil. This actually looks black, but it's actually a deep gray. So I can kind of use that towards the end there. It will make my lash line appear a little bit fuller, which is great. They're so soft and they go on so nicely. I love that. I usually like to have the inside a little bit of a slant. Instead of rounded. That kind of softens that edge a little bit. Now what I'm going to use, I'm actually going to take a little MAC pigment, just a loose pigment. The color of it is a little bit of a, kind of looks maybe a little bit brown there, but actually has a little bit more of a rose to it. I really like this color. And I'll use this brush. So it has a little bit of fullness to it, but not a lot, because I don't want this to go all over my face. Typically what I will do, I'll just put a little bit in the top of it. So I'm not dipping the whole brush into the little pot. I'll have about that much. Let's see, that's really going to be all I need, honestly. We all know MAC products are heavily concentrated. You're not going to need a lot. They cost a lot, but they also work well. I'll just usually go through the crease and just kind of buffer it. And depending on how dark I want it, I may do it a couple times. Typically, I don't want it too dark. If I have excess, I'll just simply tap it to get rid of it. Do the same thing with the other eye. I like the look of that. I really think that's all I really would want. You always have that one eye that's harder for you to blend than the other. It doesn't have to be identical twins, but they should still at least be sisters. You don't want your eyes walking around looking like first cousins. Okay, I think that's about good for me. Now, the only thing I'm going to add now to my eyes, at least, is a little bit of mascara. Like I said, I don't even wear a lot of that just because my eyes tend to get irritated quite a bit. And then for the ladies that eyebrows, you want to do something with that, but you don't want them to look too artificial. What I will do, my eyebrows are actually pretty full now, but sometimes towards the end, they may get a little sparse every now and then, but not really a lot. My eyebrows are pretty thick. What you can do is just use this to kind of groom them a little bit. Darken them up a little bit. Typically, now that is black. Typically for my eyebrows, I will use a brown one just because I don't want it to look like I just went in there and painted on my brows, just because it's not my personal aesthetic. Some women wear it and it looks great, and it's just not my thing. But I actually ran out of my brown, so that's a product that I'll have to replace. And then for the lips, I'm going to keep it really simple. I'm actually just going to use more of a soft pink. And that's really it. I'm kind of giving you an overview of the products that I used. So I started with the skin primer, and I really just use this on my eyelid for my shadow so it doesn't crease up. The only thing I had on my face was a moisturizer that I put on this morning. I started with the eyelash booster to kind of give it some conditioning, some love. Your eyelashes do tend to shed out, so you want to care for those because mascara is a really heavy product. Even though you are putting it around your eyes, it's, you know, it's got chemicals in it. Obviously, it's makeup unless you're using an organic, natural brand. And then, of course, I started with the lighter shade foundation. So this is the one that I used underneath my eyes, brought it down to a little bit of a V, and then just lightly buffer it out. I tend to start, like I said, with the actual foundation brush. You could even use one that's a little bit smaller. Sometimes if you use one that's a little bit smaller, especially around your eye, you will have a little bit more control, and then just buffer it out either with it using the actual brush as a buffer, or, you know, your pinky or your middle finger. I use that a lot as well. And then I actually went with the foundation that's actually closest to my shade for the rest of my skin. And then just making sure that you're drawing it down your neck, and that you're also buffering around your edges so that you're not walking around, you have 3 different colors going on your face, in between your face and your neckline. After that, I actually started with the white eyeliner, which I absolutely love. Like I said, this should be the starting point if your eyes are looking like, you know, a little bit lazy that morning, and maybe they need a little extra love because you weren't able to get the amount of sleep that you know you typically need. You could start with that. You could either do the whole lash line at the top and inside the corner, or either or. You don't have to do both. Typically, I do both. I'll do the whole lash line, a little bit inside the eye, buffer that out a little bit, and then you go in with whatever color you want to start with your actual eyeshadow. For me, I typically use the Mosaics as a blush just because I feel like they're easy to blend. They have several different colors. I love them. And you can get them in different little color stories. So if you want one that's a little warmer, a little cooler, it's up to you. It should go with the color of your skin. After that, I tend to go over it a little bit. Instead of using a pressed powder, which you can, I tend to use a bronzer. Just because after I use the bronzer, my skin feels like it's a little bit more awake. I feel like it matches my complexion more. I have a lot of different undertones in my complexion, so for me, that's going to be the best fit. Then after that, you could just simply play with shadows. If I did want to add a little bit more to my eye, I could go in with a darker color. Kind of contour that a little bit more. Like I said, I'm not really big on a lot of color on my eyes. If you really look at my eyes, they're kind of more of an almond shape. Too much shadow, I feel, on this eye style will close them up, and I'm looking to really open them up. So for me, that's just not my preference. For lips, I typically do like to keep them a little bit nude. This one does have a little bit of color as far as the pink. So that's kind of fun to play with. I really don't go much darker than this. Every now and then, if I'm feeling sassy, depends, I may wear red, but that's not really often. If I did the red, hardly anything would be on my eye. That's just my preference. I don't like to have a lot going on here and then a lot going on my lips. I feel like the two end up fighting and conflicting. So if you're going to have, you know, more of a smoky eye, then do a softer lip and vice versa. So hopefully these tips helped you. It's a really simple application for the everyday girl, and I will see you ladies next time.